All right, so yesterday we have completed Python basics. Today we'll start Python advanced concepts, and there will be another session on Python, and new features that is going to be at the end of the course. Okay, and this is going to cover the exception handling and OOPS concepts. Usually, this is how a class is going to get declared. So, in Python, you frequently see this colon, and of course, the intent to make sure that this will all fall under this one. The class is the keyword that you need to use, and yeah, usually classes starts with capital letter, and the remaining letter is going to be small, and you can see that the class name, and you write whatever the bunch of functions you want to. So if it is defined within class, if the function is being defined within class, we call these functions as methods. And when it comes to the variables that we declare inside the class, we call it as properties or attributes. Uh, right? So this particular chunk, basically what it does is whenever we create a class, this is going to create a blueprint. This is going to have a copy. And we can create as many objects as we want. The way we can create object is going to be like this. The class name, whatever the name that we have it here. And I have passed two parameters in this. It's not like a function, but you can see that we have variables here, all right? So whatever we provide in it, we need to provide in the form of parameters here. So color and height, we have passed color and height here. I'll explain what this init does. So I'm explaining the way we need to create object, and we can give any name you want. So whatever the object name we create on top of this class, it's going to create a space in memory. So let's take object one, the human one, right? So human one, we will have one object. Then if I say another object, I create another object, right? It's going to create another chunk of space in memory. Human 2. So when we create like this, so and immediately after object is going to create as it's going to allocate some space to each of the objects. So this is different, and this is totally complete isolated from this object. There's no correlation. Of course, we can have inheritance and all, that is different aspect altogether, but it's going to have an isolated memory space. Okay. Now,
hello, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, how are you creating the object for the class human?
Yeah, this is the way that we need to create. It's the class name and whatever the init parameters, color and height. If you don't have any parameters, in parameter, that's fine. You can completely ignore this init if you don't have anything.
We don't have to write the the function name and all.
If you want to call the function name, then you have to call it. What is the object name dot run, object name dot walk.
Okay. Yellow and 5.9 is only passing to the init method, right?
So because we had declared in init the color and height, so while creating object, you have to pass these values. If you don't have init part at all, or you have init but you don't have this color and height parameters, then you don't really require to pass these arguments.
Okay.
So this is one object, this is another object, right? So there is every possible that you can completely skip this init. It's not that it is must. But the advantage of having init is whenever you create an object, right? It is going to allocate space to that, right?
Yeah.
So while allocating space, if you want to declare some variables, in this case is color and height, right? If you want to declare some space and initialize it, so that other process, whatever that is function or whatever, it immediately, it has to be ready made. These variables need to be ready made. It is readily available to other process. Then you are going to declare under init. I hope you got this point. So immediately while allocating space, if you want these variables to be ready, then you should declare it under init. Otherwise, you can completely skip init, or you can have init, but you can declare the variables outside also. I have here, whether you can see that we can even declare without
like a
init.
predefined method or like our own method?
What do you mean predefined? So you can have predefined built-in methods. You can even have built-in methods. Let's take that run. If you want to have a built-in method in it, yes, you can use it.
Yeah. Okay. Please
Just use
continue,
it if,
sir.
yeah. Fine. So here, the way we need to declare these variables is going to be like this. The parameters and self.color equal to color, whatever this color is. You can have a different name altogether, not to be same, but usually we follow the same names, naming convention. And height, it is height. Basically, when we say self, the reason to pass self is we can have a different name altogether. Let's take in Java, I think it is new something. We can even mention it like new, but in Python, typically it's going to be self. We use the keyword self. Self, when we mention self here, what it happens is whenever we create an object, in human one, in this particular object, the name of this object is human one, right? The self become human one. All is going to be replaced with human one. In this case, it's human two. The self will be replaced with human two. That is how it works. Then you can start calling this what the parameters, I mean, sorry, the properties or the methods on top of it. Human2 dot color, human2 dot walk, and so on and so forth.
In the function walk, you have only defined like self, right? What will that print
No,
statement be?
the
Yeah,
reason actually it's what was not there actually to just to print what the self is all about. In this case, it is B20, right? In this case, CA0 that points to this human2 object in this case. Whereas in this case, this points to human one.
a
So
reference. Is it a
yeah,
reference?
yes, internally, yes, it will have its own memory space, right? It will
Yeah.
have its own address.
Mm-hmm.
This indicates that address.
Okay, good. I got it.
So this self, I only want to show you like difference between human one and human two, but it was not there in initially. You can even remove that. But this clearly shows that this object, human one and human two, are totally different, right? CA0 and B20 here. Okay, so any questions on how we declare class and what is the purpose of init, how we declare these initial parameters, sorry, initial
What
property.
will be the syntax of writing a function? I mean, the method.
This is the way that we write methods.
Just
Just like the way you
self is
declare.
mandatory, right? Self is mandatory.
Yeah, self is mandatory.
Yeah. Definition, any method name, self, and whatever the code inside the function.
Yeah, then what are the statements that you want to mention? And self, the keyword self itself is not must. It can we can change to other, but follow as per whatever the documentation suggests you.
Yeah.
And I hope you got like how we can create object on top of this class using this class blueprint, and how we can call these properties and methods, right? Dot walk or dot property, whatever. The next one, okay, any questions up to here? All right, the next one is inheritance. So usually we can have multiple classes, but in some case, what happens is like whatever. So let's take that I have base class. I created a class. I have another class, but I want to have A, B, and display methods also, even for derived class object. For example, I have created an object for a derived class D object, but in this case, D object does not have access to A, B, and display. If I want to have A, B, and display, again, I need to have a copy of this, isn't it? I need to have a copy of this. Instead of having a copy of this and keep on copying it, adding redundancy, we can simply use these properties and methods by inheriting it. So while declaring class itself, so the usual way of declaring is this one. Of course, we don't provide any round brackets or parameters for it. But if you want to inherit all the properties and methods of some class, in this case is base class, you can simply write it in round brackets and the class name. It's not the object name, it's the class name. So this derived class, whatever the object that I create for derived class, it is going to have C, D show, not just CD show. It's going to have access to A, B, and display. So I'm going to create this class now. Base class anyway, it's going to have access to display A and B, right? This base class object, display A and B. Plus derived class will have access to D. What else it has? D and sorry, C and D, right? D object C, of course, we have access to it. Apart from it, D object will have access to A, D object will have access to B. Because A, B are not part of derived class. D object is the name that I have given for derived class, whereas AB is not part of this. Because we have inherited in this way, base class, whatever base class has, is going to get inherited in derived class. Okay, whereas we have created base class object, right? Can we access the base class and get the value of C and D? Obviously, we are not going to get it. It's going to return error. So, sorry, it's a B object, isn't it? A B object. You're not going to have access to C because we have inherited base class to this derived class, but not derived class inside this base class. So base class will not have access to any of this. Only derived class will have access to all of its own and apart from it base class because we have inherited in this through this way. Right? Any questions on inheritance, single inheritance?
Is there type of inheritance like Java?
Yeah, and there are many. Yeah, so like there are many like multi-level hierarchical inheritance. Yeah, we have few. Not as many as in Java, definitely. Python is not as robust as Java. So don't expect anything and everything that Java supports, Python is going to. Python is more for data or data kind of.
Yeah.
And moreover, you don't really require to use class, but in pipeline and all, you may require it. You can even go with the function oriented as long as you use it for model generation. Because in web development, it's totally different because the code that you write is going to be reused again and again. Whereas in your Python that we use it for model generation, we are not going to deploy that code. So the code that we deploy is going to be different. It's model pipeline. So not everything need to be oops. Even without knowing oops, you can still manage things. Right. The next one is multi-level inheritance. Multi-level inheritance, we know that we have already inherited base class inside this derived class, right? There is another level. We have created another derived class, and I have derived class into this. What does that mean? So this grand derived class 1 become grand derived class. In the sense, this derived class will have access to all the derived class properties and methods. What does that mean? So in derived class, anyway, it has base class, right? So this derived class 1 will have access to its own properties and methods, EF and show 1. Apart from it, will have access to CD and show. Apart from it, will have access to this one also, because even though it has derived only derived class, but derived class in turn has derived base class, isn't it? So this derived class 1 will have access to A, B, C, D, E, F. Apart from it, it will have access to display method, show method, apart from its own show 1 method. Okay. So when we have this, when we create object for this D object 1, it will have access to show 1, right? Not just show 1. D object 1 will have access to display. D object that 1 has access to show also.
Sir, is there a shortcut to see the method feature which will come under the object?
So whenever you create an object, so you can simply use D object. So what are the object name dot tab? That will show the methods that it has access to.
Dot and tab.
Dot tab. This is IntelliSense. You can use IntelliSense, right? Fine. So we have access to all the methods. Apart from it, we can even have access to all the properties. A, let me copy this. So A, B, C, D, E, and F. You see, it has access to all. As D object, derived class has access only to its own CD and AB. Derived class is not going to have access to E and F, right? E and F will show one. Any questions on multi-level inheritance?
No.
All right, the next one is hierarchical inheritance. I think you can better understand with the picture. So let me paint it out. This is going to be like a base class. This is base class. This is derived class 1. This is derived class 2. So we inherit base class in this. We inherit base class in this one too. But there is no correlation between DEC1 and DC2, derived class 1 and derived class 2. Derived class 1 has access to BC. Derived class 2 has access to BC. This is hierarchical inheritance. It's hierarchical in nature, right? It's going to be like this.
Yeah,
It's
two
hierarchical
child class
inheritance.
can have the same parent class. Right?
Yes. The object that we create on derived class will have access to its own. Apart from it will have access to base class also. The same way, the object that we create on derived class 2 will have access to its own properties and methods. Apart from it will have access to its base class properties and methods. So we have already seen derived class 1. So here I have created only derived class 2. So GH show 2. So derived class 2 object is D object 3. It will have access to GH its own methods, properties. Apart from it, what do we have it in base class? It's A, B, and display, right? We can even have access to A, B, and display. You can see that. Display we have access to, and show 2 we have access, of course. Show 1 we are not going to have access because there is no relation, isn't it? Show 1 is related to DC1, not DC2. The same way DC1 can't access show 2. Any questions on hierarchical inheritance? Or am I going too fast?
No, sir, no doubt about.
All right. The next one is also a kind of multi-level inheritance. This is going to be like, let me take another paint. Reverse. So we have seen this one, base class to this one. Now it's going to be like this. Reverse of it. And it's not just limited to 2. We can even have one more, or it can be even more than 2, right? So the idea is we have seen like no one derived class can inherit two other classes. Here you can see parent 1, which is base class 1, parent 2, which is base class 2, and child class, derived class here. Child class, given the name child class, you can give any name you want. It has inherited 2. It can be even more than 2, not just 1. Till up to here, we have inherited only 1 class, but we can even inherit more than 2. And the whole structure is going to be is going to be like this. We can even more.
So
Right?
will there be no ambiguity problem here?
Yeah, there will be conflicts. So when it has conflicts, for example, that's the reason I have given conflicts here. You can see that name. So whenever you derive something from another class, let's take the name here, name here, name here. So when you call name from child class object, so this will have its own precedence. It will have its, its own. I mean, it's a high precedence will be given to its own properties and methods. Suppose the name, if I call this child class, I given name, but I got what we got here is Polani Damoda, not Polani or Damoda.
So it will give priority to the child class itself.
Yeah, because its own properties and methods.
If there is no properties of in the child class, then which one will it take?
then it first one will be taken. For example,
Okay,
I am
will be given
yeah,
to the first parent.
I'm going to comment this part.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I create the object for it, I need to recreate it, so I can't choose the same one. So you can see that Damodar has come into it because parent one I have given. That is how it is. Let's take that parent two. I'm trying to change the order. So
Yeah.
if right, so then I'm trying to recreate the object. Try to call that name. Now you can see Poland because the order matter. The first one is going to have precedence. But if it has its own property that conflicts, then it will have its own, it's going to use its own properties in that.
Priority. Yeah. Name.
It's the same, it's not just for property, it can be applied for the methods also.
Method.
The same rule
Methods.
for, methods also. Here you can see child method, parenthood method, parent methods. I have not created any conflicts, but same rule for methods too, right?
Yeah.
Of course, if this child class object will have access to all the properties and methods of parent two and all the methods and properties of this one too, unless it has conflicts.
Like Java, is there any superclass for every classes here in Python also?
Yes, yes, of course, it will have its own superclass. The class by itself comes from its own superclass, right? Okay, you mean to say that,
Object.
right, right, especially when we have conflicts, right? Yes, we do have. We can specifically refer it, but we're not going to dive, too much into it because we're not going to use it much as we use it for web development. If
Like
this is a
only
web development course, yes, of course, I will definitely consider it.
this is only the basic Python is needed for that. This one.
By
GenAI.
basic Python is good enough for AI.
Okay.
You will understand, and moreover, the code is more repetitive compared to web development. Web development is always more innovative, right? So you need to write new logics. Of course, yeah, you have your own set of code that you reuse it. That is different, but you always write something new code. So it's less repetitive in when it comes to web development. When it comes to AI, it's more repetitive.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
No.
All right. So 9 o'clock we started, right? Yeah. Polymorphism. So polymorphism is, let me tell you that Python does not support polymorphism. Whatever that I'm going to show you, especially those who are from programming background like Java and all, so don't even expect things near to it. So this completely, you may feel it quite rubbish too. But I need to show a few workarounds, not really workarounds, but at least near to it. Polymorphism in the sense, what do you mean by, what exactly is polymorphism all about? Polymorphism is like when we have multiple methods with various parameters. Let's take A comma B. Let's take another method, A comma B comma C, right? Same method name. I haven't changed anything. We have more parameters. The idea of polymorphism is based on the number of parameters that I provide. Let's take, if I provide two, it has to call this one. If I don't provide any parameters, it has to call this one. If I provide three parameters, right, and while calling it, it has to call this method. So based on the number of parameters, it has to call the appropriate method. In polymorphism, Java, C++, C Sharp, those languages supports polymorphism. So based on the number of arguments that you pass, it is going to call the appropriate method. And if you observe it closely, it is the same name. That is one thing that you have to, that one rule that you have, thumb rule that you have to follow for polymorphism. Whereas Python does not support it. So it's going to call the last one. For example, in this case, if I try to create an object and expect that add will call this one, no, it's not going to work. Add will call this one, it will not work. Because it's going to overwrite with the last one that you define. So it has to, it will definitely expect that three parameters, three arguments, because we have provided three arguments here, right? That's the reason it is going to expect three arguments. What if you want to create a workaround for it? Again, as I told you before, so especially Java programmers, those who are here, you feel too silly, once you see the workaround, it's default parameters. For example, here, if I create, let's take 10, B 20, and C 30, right? If I create object on this, even without parameter is going to give the result because it's going to use the default, right? In this case, even if you have two other methods, it's not going to be useful. It's completely rubbish. You can even delete this. But you can have a kind of polymorphism, not really polymorphism.
So what about overriding?
That's what I'm saying. So when last one is going to override the other ones, in fact, it is not even polymorphism, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Like,
don't expect polymorphism from Python, but this is how it is going to be. So as we have to discuss polymorphism concept also in when we discuss OOPS, I brought this concept. I brought this idea. Otherwise, we can completely ignore it, right? And overwriting, you can see that if I use the same, you can see that this one overrides every other when we inherit, right? That is overwriting. The same
yeah.
case for this one too. If I have parent two method
In the
in this,
child itself, it would have taken the child parent to method itself,
yeah,
right?
because the object that we create on child class is going to use this one. Uh,
Yeah, Java does not support multi-level. Yeah,
yeah, so
it is
this is
taking.
overwrite, a simple
Yeah,
overwrite, I can say. It's not
yeah,
even comes, no, we can't even call it as runtime polymorphs, overwriting.
yeah, got it.
Fine. So default parameters, we can change runtime polymorphism as I said before. So if you have one method, I have another method wherein we have derived this base class. This is going to use this one rather than this one because it has its own. Of course, base class will call its own as the object that we create on shell is going to use this one. Here we don't have any parameters. You have to give parameters. The only solution is you have to provide default parameters if you avoid such pitfalls.
Even if we call the parent add class, it will not take, right? Here,
Parent class, you have to have your own object and you need to call appropriately.
from the child class, it is, I mean, inheritance, right? You are putting the base in the child.
Mm.
So if I call the add method, it will take the child itself, not the
No,
parent.
yeah,
I mean, the base.
definitely. It's not even going to consider this one
Yeah, this is overriding that method.
because we have provided parameters. It will definitely expect parameters. We haven't even provided the values, isn't it? I mean to say.
Yeah.
We haven't even provided the default values. So child class, if I try to avoid passing arguments, is going to throw error unless you have these default
What if it
values.
was A and B were given in the parent and not in the child? Will it take the child itself?
No, it doesn't matter how what parameters or it has. It always take the child if there is a conflict, especially when we
Okay.
create object on child. So it doesn't matter whether it has parameters or not parameters, default values or not having default values, right? So
Okay.
any other questions?
I mean, after practicing, we may get, but at that point, I don't have.
Yeah. Next one is abstraction. Abstraction, yes, we can have abstraction in Python. I mean to say abstraction is well supported in Python, but we need to have imports wherein ABC is a library wherein we need to import two things. One is ABC, capital ABC, another one is abstract method. I'll explain what this ABC and abstract methods are, but this comes from the library called ABC. You have to import it, otherwise we can't implement abstraction. Of course, you can have your own code and alternative for ABC library. That is totally different.
What is capital ABC and
That
what?
is what I'm
I mean,
saying. So
library is small
I'm
ABC.
going to explain it. So wait.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So any questions up to here? So you need to have an import of this, and you can have any class you want. If you want to create an abstract class, okay. Let me explain what the purpose of abstract class is all about. For example, let's take that you are a project manager and you have let's take 4 to 5 developers under you, right? Project manager, you have 3 developers, developer 1, developer 2, and developer 3. So you have asked them to write logic for let's take find interest rate. Okay, you need to the developer need to write logic for find interest rate. Okay, interest rate. And you have given the task for all the developers, isn't it? Obviously, they are going to write their own function name, isn't it? Interest rate, fine, right? And then they write their own statements. The same way, dev 2 may write their own names. Rate, interest. I'm just giving random names. So don't take it literally. So find an interest rate. They may give their own names. The problem of giving their own names is if we have only one task, that's fine. What if the problem has given 100 tasks? They may give n different names by each developer. Then project manager, once he gets the code from all the developers, he may get confused, isn't it? You need to look at the logic and judge what this function is all about. If there is a way that we can enforce the same name for all the developers, that they have to use it, they have to use that name only. So they should not change it, right? That's the whole idea of abstraction. Enforcing a skeleton, enforcing a structure. If you look at this, I'll explain how this syntax works. Before that, you can see that I have declared, I have a function called, method called housing interest. I have another one called vehicle interest. So when we derive this in FZVI or another developer ICSCI, you can see that we have given the same name, vehicle interest, housing interest, vehicle interest, housing interest, vehicle interest. If we give some other name, let's take new, that's going to throw error. I'll show you practically. Before that, we need to understand this, how we need to declare this abstract class. Usually, for any method, we are not going to implement logic. So that's the reason any method you look at it here, we have none. Of course, you can have your own method that has logic in it, but that is not the whole idea of abstract class. We don't use that in that way. We can have your own statements, but we should not practically it's not ideal, but in some case if project manager knows a particular method well, then he can implement the logic straight away here. But that is not the idea of abstract class. Abstract class usually give the skeleton. It enforces the names. As we don't write logic in abstract class, you can have any name you want. As we don't have logic inside these methods, we have to mention it as none. Okay. Another one, these names, whatever you have, so you need to mention at the rate abstract method. This is actually decorator, a function-based modifier. We call it as we call this as decorator. So this decorator is must. So where do we got this abstract method? We got this from here. What about this abstract demo? So in order to consider this as abstract class, we need to derive this one, ABC. If we don't derive this ABC, this will not come and will be considered as abstract class. So there are two things. One, you need to derive this ABC class, which comes from ABC library, and this abstract method, you need to mention this decorator here. For every method, you need to mention this. If you don't mention that, that will not enforce the name. That will not come under abstract method, abstract class. I hope this is clear now. Any questions?
Is capital ABC a keyword or what?
It's a class that comes from this library that will dictate that this abstract to turn this abstract class into this class into abstract class.
It is extending, is it?
It's deriving. We are deriving it. So this will only change the way it behaves. So this is a clear way of indicating that this is an abstract class, right? And every method we not implement the logic is just the name. And if you want to have parameters, you can define it. But this is how we declare it. And yeah,
I have a doubt about this one. If one class has to extend another class, you just have to write it like in the bracket, right? What you have written in the ABC.
Yes.
Is it the same way?
Yes. We have seen that in inheritance.
Yeah, same extent. Yeah.
And now, under this abstract demo, I inherited in SBI, right? We have to inherit the abstract class. Abstract demo is the inherit abstract class. So once we have it, if I have the same names, that's fine. It will work. But what if I give some additions to it, new, right? Let's take in this case uh, method, right? You can see that it is going to throw error even if you call with the name, same name. You can see that. So it is in fact enforcing you to use those method names. Of course, there should be some communication name to say, for example, it's by mistake he won't is not going to do that. For example, if I have something, you can see that instantiate abstract class is behaved with abstract method housing arrays. It is going to no. We have to communicate this, of course. We have to have clear documentation of this abstract class so that they are going to use it. So by mistake, there is no way that you can add something to this method names. You have to use it.
So SBI is extending the abstract demo, right? So if we write
Right.
our own method, this one new housing interest, it is also possible, right?
That's what I'm saying. So you should not use this term. You can have your own method altogether. There's nothing wrong in having your own method.
So if you
My
are
own
housing,
housing. You can do that.
yeah,
But usually the project manager, enforce certain names.
yeah.
So
If
that
we are extending the abstract class, we have to use those methods itself.
yeah, because let's say the developer one has pushed the code to GitHub,
Yeah.
and this one has been pushed to remote repo. And project manager, when he look at it, so when he look at the function, so he not get confused with it.
Yeah, we have to use those templates itself so that
Yeah.
it will be easier to code.
Yes.
Got it.
And why am I getting error? Should realize me with abstract method vehicle interest. Oh, I have used this one, right? That's the reason it's keep giving error. Now this is clear. The same case for another one. Okay, so any questions on this? Okay, we will wind up with the abstract, no, this one, encapsulation data handling. We'll continue tomorrow. I think as modules and exception handling. We'll continue tomorrow. So let me, I think someone asked the modifiers. So we have private public modifiers too. Encapsulation and data hiding. The basic idea of encapsulation data hiding is providing security. Let me explain how do you provide security. Let's take that we have class here. A, B are properties, and display is a method, right? We create object for this demo object on class this one. A, B we can access it, and display we can access it. What if I don't want this A to be accessed once we have this object? We need to mention it as underscore underscore A. So if you look at this now, even if I have object on this demo, if I try to access A or underscore underscore A, I can't access it because this became private to this particular class. I can use this A only inside another method within the class. For example, if I try to print A, sorry, we need to mention self, right? uh, I'm not sure whether it is, oh yeah, we can't access A. If I try to access display method, I think it's underscore underscore in here. We can't access the underscore underscore A directly, but when we try to use display, we can access 10. That is access. Within within the class, we can use this one. Whereas outside the class, if you try to create the object and try to pull that property, you're not going to have that one. So I hope you got this one. So, any questions on how to make, by default it's going to public. B equal 20 is a public. You don't need to explicitly write as public, unlike Java. Any questions on
So
this?
how
Yeah.
many types of modifiers are there?
The many again depends on whether it is function modifier. Decorators are in fact function modifiers, right? There are few other modifiers we will discuss. Decorators, generators we will discuss in detail in another section at the end of the course.
Okay.
In terms
I
of
mean, is it
NCAPS,
like protected something? I mean,
that is what I'm saying. So encapsulating data hiding, we have two, private and public. Public is by default, and private is we need to add underscore underscore. In the case of method, the same rule applies. If you
yeah.
mention underscore underscore, this method can't be accessed from this object. If you look at this one, I'm going to use A, B. B I can access because this is public. Yeah, I can't access it. Whereas display, I can't access. Even if I mention underscore underscore, I can't access. But if I have another method, right, like show, wherein return display, right? Let me clear object again. A I can't, of course, I can't access because it's private. B, of course, I can access. Display can access it, no, directly, because we made this as private. And the other one is show, right? What is the name? Show.
Sure.
So if I, where is that? Yeah. So if I use show, demo object is not defined. So one second.
Something you have taken.
What is that?
Name.
Oh, I think I have to return something, right? So no, something is different. That is for another demo altogether. Demo object has no attribute show. Okay. Oh, sorry. This is what you're referring to. So show.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right, right. Got it. Got it. Here, of course, we have show. Yes, of course, we can. Now you can see 10 display method in demo class is not really part of show. It is in fact part of this. Right, got printed. Right. Okay,
Yeah.
that's it for today. If you have any questions, let me know.
Though the entire Python, which is, I mean, are you telling this is the basic? I mean, the normal Python will be there, right? That much Python is not needed in this course. That's what you're telling.
Yeah, so we don't really need to be an expert in OOPS, object-oriented programming, like in the case of web development. Of course, in
Yeah.
web development, we should not, ideally, we should not use Python. We can use it, but ideally, we should not use Python. Like Java, C++, or Node, JavaScript is better, much better options.
So this one for the database, are we using anything yet? I mean, is
Yes,
it
we are
needed?
going to have a session on databases, so connectivity to database using Python.
Which
We're going to
database
have.
are we using?
Like we are going to have SQL session, one
Huh.
common SQL session, but connectivity, we're going to have connectivity to PostgreSQL, MySQL, and SQL Server.
Okay.
I'll provide the code for it.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions?
Based on yesterday's session, I had a doubt.
Yeah, go ahead.
And, you wrote this one, right? Open file.
Okay.
Yeah, in that one, can we read one file and put it in another file?
One file, yes, of course, we can read it. We can use R plus mode, f.read on this one. And we can write it in another, so store it in a variable so that you can reuse that and write
F1,
it somewhere.
F2, and we can read that one and write it in the F2. Like, is it?
Yeah, you can. So when you read when you go for f.read, store it in a variable, data equal to f.read. That variable can be reused, right?
Yeah.
And
Then
we can
again, we have to write it, that variable using that one, I have to write it in another file.
another open, and you can give your own name for it. Let's take f1, f1.write data.
I'll
You can
try
do
to
that.
Yeah.
You can do that.
And another one, you wrote the read line, right? F.read line.
Okay.
So read line by line, it will read the data line by line, right?
Right.
If I put it in a while loop, it will take the line by line data until the
right.
cursor goes to the last point, right?
Last
So what
point
is
is
the
this.
condition I should give in the while loop?
So then you need to make sure that whether it's blank or not. But again,
Until
it
it is,
depends. Yeah, until it is blank. But the problem is that there is every possibility that it may encounter blank in the middle, right?
yeah.
So then it is difficult. I think you better go with the length. You get some way or the other, the length of it, number of lines in the document, and then you can feed that condition in
Is there
while.
a method to get the length of the, whole documents or something?
Number of lines, yes, of course. Number of lines we have. I think Linux we have, but in Python I'm not sure. So we need to check it. Yeah, we can do one thing. We can create data frame and length of it. We can do that, but it depends on what kind of data it has. If it is text data,
Hmm.
again we need to check the separator and all. So it depends on the context. Like unless we have the file, it's difficult to say. So we can convert into a NumPy array or a data frame and find the length of it so that you will get the count of rows. Or I don't know a specific method or a library that gives the number of lines in a file.
Are we going to use that kind of, handle that kind of methods while reading the whole text data or something
We
else?
can, we have a lot of, we're going to handle a lot of data that is NLP, text based, and we're going to create a data frame out of it. But in that case, once we have it in the form of data frame, there is no, we can easily get the length of number of rows. That's
Is
not
that
going
going
to
to
be.
be covered here?
Yeah, Generative AI is going to have that kind of project too. We have a project on movie reviews. We'll come to know that.
So how much knowledge is needed in Excel here?
Excel is not necessary. Excel is only for data analysis. If in case I have a project in this course, but if in case someone asks you to do data analysis in Excel, you can do that. But you will not become an Excel expert. But this course is not again for data analysis. This is going to focus on generative AI.
Oh,
But you need to choose a different course altogether for data analysis, Excel data analysis, or in general,
but
generative data.
some knowledge should be there on Excel.
One project I'm going to cover to explain the pivot. In some case, it may necessary, but this course is not for data analysis.
Oh,
It's generative AI.
that's it.
Yeah. Any other questions? All right, that's it for today. We'll continue tomorrow. Yeah, go ahead.
No, sir. I'm good, sir.
All right. So if you don't have any questions, you can log off. Thanks for joining. Continue
Thank you,
tomorrow.
sir.